Okay, let's come back to the UN General Assembly. And, Yvette Cooper, our illustrious new Foreign Secretary, was speaking. Let's have a listen to what she said.
I stand before you today beneath the emblem of the United Nations to confirm the historic decision of the British government to recognise the State of Palestine. This step, alongside friends and partners, reflects a long-standing truth that statehood is the inalienable right of the Palestinian people and that two states is the only path to security and lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But recognition must be a spur, not a substitute for urgent action. A ceasefire now, the release of all hostages, the restoration of aid and a lasting framework for peace. Recognition is about the future, but it is rooted in our past. 75 years ago, Britain was rightly proud to recognise the State of Israel. But the promise of upholding Palestinian rights has gone unfulfilled. For decades, my country supported a two-state solution, but only recognised one state. That changes now, as we join more than 150 member states in recognising the State of Palestine and protecting the pathway to peace.
Now, I'm sure we can talk about this in extra and so on, but for me, that whole thing was complete nonsense. It changes nothing. The Starmer regime has not made any statement or taken any action to actually pressure Israel into stopping the genocide. They haven't prevented a single bullet from being shipped to Israel from this country. Now, also on Monday, Keir Starmer put out an X-post wishing the Jewish people, the Jewish community, a happy new year. This was the tweet that he pushed out. This resulted in over 4,000 comments. Now, let's just have a look at a few of those. To go gaslight someone else, hypocrite, he was told, you don't get to bless us for the new year after embracing the Palestinian Authority that pays the salaries of Jews' murderers. And then he's more and more commentary on this. You're quite literally the second coming of Neville Chamberlain. Is in this new year, may the Lord strike you and your disgusting, inept and corrupt party and call strike down you and your disgusting, inept party and corrupt party and call a general election. Sorry. The strong language started coming out at that point. The insults against the Islamic community started coming out. From the river to the sea, but this time with the Israeli flag, really sort of suggesting the Greater Israel Project, and more unpleasantness in the form of artwork and so on appearing on here. So this was pretty unpleasant. So the question is, what did the recognition of Palestine achieve? In the meantime, then Armed Forces Minister Alistair Cairns has posted an opinion piece in the Daily Mail headlined, British veterans fought to bring peace and security to Northern Ireland. Now they deserve a fair deal. Now, this is about the return of the investigations into British military activity, British Army activity in Northern Ireland during the so-called Troubles. This entire process, of course, this investigation, the historical investigation, is a travesty because people on the Republican side were released from prison under the so-called Good Friday Agreement with letters of amnesty from Tony Blair, while people serving in the British Army have had to endure decades of inquiry, criminal investigation, and so on. Now, Cairns attempts to wrap this all up in words of reassurance for anyone that on the receiving end of it. But the question then is, what has been the response to this in the comments? This is typical of it. The courts wouldn't allow an asylum seeker to be deported to Kenya, but it's okay for soldiers because, of course, part of this is them having to go back to Belfast for hearings. Two-tier Keir, don't care about our heroes. He's a terrorist lover, and so on. So more of the same, in other words, two-tier Keir supporting terrorists, and etc. This is both of these situations, in my opinion, and Vanessa might critique what I'm saying here in a second, but this, in my opinion, is designed to stir up these kinds of sentiments. Everyone is supposed to feel outrage at it, because Starmer knows that aside from a few memes on X with unpleasant words on them, none of the outrage is going to be directed at him personally or even at his government. When it comes to the crunch, it's going to be directed at people perceived to be on the left, because the left-right split is something which is absolutely being amplified at the moment, or else on people who have different colored skin. But if we go back to his X post that we saw earlier and look at this this comment, sorry. So the comments section isn't going as you hoped, said Arthur. Well, in fact, I believe it is going exactly as he hoped, because I believe that this was a pretty cynical attempt just to cause this kind of outrage. Now, 2 weeks ago, around 1 million people came out on Britain's streets, funded and promoted by largely the Zionist lobby. There was a counter demonstration, as Ben was pointing out on a previous news program, which also seems to have had Zionist interest behind it to a certain degree. Is it a surprise then that the same interests would be supporting both sides of an engineered argument? And the question is, has this ever happened before? Now, this is an article on John Waters' Substack, headlined "How British Intelligence Planned the Irish Troubles of 68 to 98 and Used Provisional IRA Fake Patriots to Achieve the Ruination of Ireland." I think this is important because the ruination of England is exactly where this country is at the moment. And I would just ask the question, what would happen if, instead of coming out on the streets and waving some flags, that the 1 million people or so that were out a couple of weeks ago made a commitment instead to stop paying tax? Would the regime take notice then? Vanessa, this segment has been a bit of an opinion piece, but I'd just be interested in your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, Tom Barrack, who will get on to Trump's sort of envoy to the Middle East, described the whole operation of recognizing a Palestinian state as useless. Those were his words. And I was thinking it was to appease the anti-genocide protesters and so on after they've been victimizing Palestine Action and old age pensioners who are coming out to protest in support of Palestine Action, for example. But now I'm actually wondering, when you're showing those responses to Starmer, if it's not also giving oxygen to the Zionist victimhood, which is also something that they need to be able to reinforce their cause as they further expand their violence and their slaughter and their genocide, not only of Palestinians, but also Lebanese, Syrians, Iraqis, Yemenis, etc. So I think there's two roles, as you've rightly said, but I think on a local, national level, yeah, it's all about stirring up hatred, sectarian hatred again.
Charles, just before we come on to your main segment here, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, I would absolutely agree with what Vanessa says. I think listening to Yvette Cooper, I mean, first of all, sounded like she had taken elocution lessons before delivering that speech and was sort of searching for gravitas that she never quite found. But it's as though she's sort of saying that something was so clearly the case that the unanswered question is, well, so why is it taken until now? Why now? And also, like a curve which needs flattening, a pathway to peace remains incredibly sort of ill-defined. That, you know, what is the end state, and indeed what are the obstacles along the way, and how much does it cost in human life and money to actually tread that apparent pathway to peace? So it's just the latest confection in a sort of barrage of nonsense, I would say.